Greetings, my friend. Welcome to the secret shop.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Secret Shop. I am, of course, Neon, and I am stoked to welcome you to this episode. I am, of course, joined by Aggro. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm hyped. And Simon, you're here too. How's it going, buddy?
I'm fired up, is what I am.
Fired up. Okay, yeah, we have a ton to talk about this week, like absolutely mountain of stuff to talk about. So much so, we're actually going to be breaking up this episode into two pieces. Just wanted to get that right out of the way at the beginning because there's literally that much news that we don't want to kind of cram it in all into one. We'll be doing an episode today that's going to be coming out on Tuesday, as you're probably listening to this, and then of course we'll be doing an episode that we're hoping to have come out on Friday. That'll also be kind of taking care of some of the other news. Like our episode today is going to be focusing on the tournament, of course, that happened this weekend, the beta preview tournament that was, of course, hosted by the BTS boys. That was absolutely spectacular, and everything that's associated with that. And then later on this week, we're going to be focusing a little bit more on the news that came out over the course of the weekend that more applies to how things are going to be working in Artifact once it's actually released. So I just wanted to get that out, clarified right off the bat so people have that expectations. So
we're splitting it like the finale of Twilight.
Yes, exactly. Got to get in that extra, mileage. Like the Harry Potter people are doing too, man. Like it's just the way to go. Or like the Hobbit too. Yeah, man. Before you know it, we'll have 7 episodes per day. It'll be great. Mm-hmm. So to begin with, though, we are going to start with our warm up question, and I actually want to do this one first related to the weekend. What was your just like a quick moment that you saw that you thought was a really fun little bit from the whole weekend? And I actually am going to start. I imagine that most people who are listening to this already know how things ended up in the end. And I actually what I liked the most was just Joe Larson being there to talk about his experience going through the tournament and talking about, he was saying, I'm probably going to be switching to Artifact. I'm not going to be working very much on Magic anymore, or as much as before. For those of you who maybe didn't follow it, Joe Larson won the tournament that happened this weekend. He's, of course, a big name Magic the Gathering player. He won a Pro Tour, has been playing it for years and years, and he actually stepped away from the Pro Tour this weekend, what's happening this weekend, to participate in this tournament and goes on to win it. So he just the comments that he had around that, I thought were pretty inspiring in that. So that was my moment from the weekend that I thought was particularly sweet.
Yeah, hashtag worth 10K easy.
Oh yeah. What about you, Aggro? Was there a particular moment for the weekend that stuck out to you?
Tell us about your wins.
I don't know. I ate a pretty good pizza. I made a nice, tasty pizza.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was talking about related to the tournament, but that's cool too. Any other the things that you did? You pet some nice dogs. I don't know, hung out with friends.
Okay, one thing I really liked is just we will get back to some other parts of the tournament, but just the production, like the background had all the path banners and all of that, and the casters, especially. I don't know, I don't like having favorites, but I kind of do. Swim and Fwash are just everybody was amazing, but especially Swim and Fwash were just so crazy good.
Yeah. I gotta say I was actually surprised by the production value, and I'm not being ironic here. When the whole thing started and they showed their little setup, I actually thought it was going to be a complete skeleton production in a way, where it's literally just people sitting at a bare table with a poster in the background or something, and just going from game to game and literally seeing the UI of the spectator, etc., just switching by hand, etc. And it wasn't. They did do that as well, but they had this whole setup with the flags, and they had the couch, they had some really nice conversations, analytical stuff for the games in between. I thought it was really great.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk a lot more about that, but I think that all of us, I was blown away too by how well everything put together.
Especially, like, this must have been pretty short notice. Like, didn't they say like 2 weeks ago beta players only knew there would be a tournament or something like 3 weeks ago, and then they fucking pulled this off? BTS, man.
I think that the BTS people knew a little bit before that. I talked a little bit about this with Lumi before. Before some of this information was public, but it seemed to suggest that he knew a little bit more, but it was still not like they had tons and tons of notice. Right. So, given the level of, I mean, there's a lot of things happening at once. It's really hard to get these sorts of productions to work properly. Like, however hard you think it is 10 times harder. It is so much harder than what it looks like, because the job of everybody who's involved in a broadcast like this is to make it look effortless.
Exactly. And so I saw that struggle with the flags. I know those were handcrafted.
Oh yeah. Somebody like sat there and like painted them, or whatever. Like, that's the level of care they brought to. But we'll get it back to that though. Well, we will start off though. I actually want to start off by talking with our own Anger Mania, who, just barely out of that $10,000, almost did it, brought it home for the podcast. But I just want to talk to you about your experience in the tournament, because while you didn't make the top 8, it looks like you had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was very fun, and I didn't do super well, but I did much better than I thought. I ended up 4-3. So at least I had a positive win rate.
Yeah, that's good.
But one thing that I have to point out though, is that I lost 3, but I also only won 3, because I got one win for free when my opponent didn't show up.
Boy.
Yeah, you don't have to tell us that. You just say that you went 4-3. Like, it's like, one of my opponents was really easy. Totally smashed that guy.
That feeling when you're not even worth the points feels bad.
Yeah, but it was really fun, and just the thrill of winning in this tournament compared to when I just play normally it was amazing. And
So let's go into some more specifics then for it, because we do actually have your decks here that you drafted over the course of the event. There were 2 decks here that because you participated, of course, in both drafts. The first one is the red, blue, green deck, correct? That was the first one that you made? Okay. So tell the people at home a little bit about some of the contents of this deck and the plan behind it.
Yeah, so a lot of people think that putting Crystal Maiden in the deck is a bad idea because she's so weak and her passive isn't that good. But for this deck in particular, she was actually crazy good. She was, like, I was very unsure at the start when I first put her in, but in the end, it's paid off because many times her passive were actually useful when I could do combos and shit with a lot of cheap spells.
Hey,
but also,
me. I never thought she was bad.
You never did it wrong. Don't get me wrong. Crystal Maiden is awful, but in this deck she worked because she was probably one of the heroes that died the least, even though she's so weak. And it's because I had so many spells and items, particularly for keeping her alive. Like, I had Fur-Lined Mantle, which usually is a terrible item, but when I put it on Crystal Maiden, suddenly she didn't die so easily. And I had Cunning Plan, Frostbite, and
commit everything on the Maiden.
Yeah, and also, with Enchantress and Treant Protector, who have passives that also can buff her. Like, she was just not a problem in this deck. In fact, she was very good for this deck. And I was very happy to get both Enchantress and Treant. That was actually crazy. Because there was just no way of killing my shit. The only thing that could potentially kill was Crystal Maiden, but even her I kept alive. And the creeps too, like Wool Martyr, if they kill that, I get a buff. The Rebel Decoy, you kind of want to die because you want to sacrifice him for something. And also I had Salamane's Favor, which I could then play into the Ogre Conscript, which I have 2 of, and Roseleaf Rejuvenator and Thunderhide Pack. Usually I wouldn't use Salamania's Favor in draft, but because I got these high cost, really strong creeps, I put it in anyway. And I had 2-dimensional portals. That was also kind of why I splashed in Crystal Maiden, because Dimensional Portal is so fucking good in draft.
Super worth it.
And Keith the Bold, I think Keith the Bold was probably the weakest hero I had out of these, even weaker than Crystal Maiden.
I mean, did you choose him because you didn't choose enough heroes, or did you have him in your strategy from the very beginning?
Oh, no. It was, I think the last hero I got was something crap, like Lion or something. I can't remember. It was something that didn't work with this draft, because it was, when you draft, if you don't pick a hero in the start, and then the last 2 cards you get 1 random hero. And I think that was something crap that I couldn't put in. And there was just so many creeps, and there was no way of killing them. So this deck was actually crazy good. And honestly, it was because I played bad because this deck, I won 1 game and I lost 2. And the 2 games I lost were very close. And they were because I played pretty bad. But the deck in and of itself is really good.
I actually do think that this seems like the kind of deck that could support a Crystal Maiden. The fact that you can that you have her coming in on the flop, which means on the second turn, that means that you can position her beside like whichever lane she's most likely to survive, whether it's on the Enchantress lane or the Triad Protector lane, and then you have like half of the blue cards that you have are things to keep her alive, and the other half are actually nice payoff cards. So that means that she is going to stay alive relatively well.
Yeah.
So all things considered, I think that this kind of makes sense for it. One card that you didn't mention that surprisingly you didn't mention is the Mists of Avernus that you had in here. A nice inclusion that helps her, turn into a hero that actually matters too. So
and if you look at my first deployment phase, like I have Keith, Enchantress, and Treant Protector. In the first round, you have 3 mana. I have 2 Remessed Blessings and 1 Mist of Avernus. So potentially, this didn't happen, but potentially I could play both of those the first round.
Nice.
So it's not only to keep Crystal Maiden alive. I put her third, but I have 18 green cards and 14 red. So it made sense to deploy Tidehunter last.
Yeah, no, I think that this made a lot of sense, and looking at the deck, it was clear that you had a plan, even though when you first see that Crystal Maiden, you're just like, I don't know about this. Yeah, but that made a lot of sense. So that was one, though, that you said that you got 1-2 with this deck, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Being outplayed. I would love to be able to watch all the games for it. Man, I'm so hungry for all the content now. For it.
I really wish I could watch replay so I can actually learn from my mistakes, because I feel now I understand my mistakes while I play, but then after, unless I take notes while playing, there's no way to rewatch the games. And actually, like in Dota, you learn from watching replays.
Oh, yes. Is that feature isn't there?
No.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, that's actually something, though, that I want to... It's a good transition to bring in. Actually, one thing that I'm doing with my YouTube channel now is I'm going to try and start doing daily videos of analyzing artifact games.
Dude, you're crazy.
Yeah. No, this is totally actually fucking insane to do. I don't know why I'm doing this to myself, but I have decided I'm going to try to do it. The first one is up right now. By the time that you're listening to this, probably the second one will be up too. So the first one,
I saw that.
Yeah, I'm starting with actually
confused. How?
I'm starting with some easier games. I'm going to kind of transition, I think, over the next little while into some of the more complicated ones. The first couple that I did were kind of straightforward, given all things. But this is something that I'm really interested in doing. With my focus as being on the idea of trying to help people like Aggro improve, because I think that going through these games and analyzing them systematically, like, she just clearly needs all the help from these noobs who actually played the game yet. No, but But no, I think that it is really helpful. It's something that I enjoy of the content that I do. So make sure to check that out and subscribe to the channel. And I'm also not going to be like posting that stuff on Reddit as well. So if you're somebody who kind of sees whenever I post stuff on Reddit and says like, hey, I like Neon's content, but that's where I find out that it's happening, like you're not going to see it if you're just going through it there. So make sure that you subscribe. Make sure that you click the button to the little bell.
Yeah.
Smash the button. The bell rather. But anyway, that's something I just wanted to plug quickly while we're on that subject. But let's move on then to the second deck, because this one is also, I'm really interested to hear how you got into this deck. This is once again a 3-color deck. 1 green, 2 black, 2 blue. The green, though, is really interesting here. You have a Drow Ranger as your only green hero.
Instant win, as Reddit says.
Yes, of course. It's totally undefeated with that card. If you have it, it's just so fucking OP, apparently.
They're not wrong, because this deck was crazy. Okay, I won the game.
Mists of Avernus is the other the great card that you have in here. So yeah, like I mean, so you lost games with this deck, is what you're saying?
I lost 1 game, and that was honestly because I did the biggest fucking misplay ever. But like, okay, I'm not gonna say that I would have won if I hadn't made that one mistake. But this deck was fucking lit. It was so good.
This deck is really cool. I like this deck.
It was crazy.
Like, I'm not sure how good it is exactly, but it's really cool. So tell us a little bit about other things that are in it.
Let me tell you why it's good, okay?
Okay.
So you see Venomancer, right? He's deployed second round. Bloodseeker pretty much survives.
Sure.
Ogre Magi pretty much survives. Drow Ranger would sometimes die, but I had Romesk Blessing that could potentially save her, and for Ogre I had Compel that could potentially save him. And there was only 1 game, I think, where I lost a hero the first round. Second round I deploy Venomancer, who every round after will also deploy his what are they called, the little
Plague
creeps.
Wards.
Yeah. And then third round comes Necrophos. So Venomancer and Necrophos, I want to position them in a place where I know that they will get the most out of the game. And what happened was that all the at least 2, in some games also 3 lanes, I would just overwhelm the opponent with creeps, because you see I have so many creeps and so many buffs for them too. And if I was against blue, which was what I was afraid of, blue getting rid of all the creeps, I also had the Gust from Drow. And the Disciple of Nevermore, which is now actually my favorite card in the whole game, is just like, with this deck, I think versus one of my opponents, I won within the 5 mana round or something, or 6.
Oh, shit.
It was super early because I just... Yeah, and in 1 game I took down the Ancient. Like it was just super crazy. One thing that I would maybe have changed in hindsight was I have 3 paydays in the deck, which I never actually got to utilize that much, because I got the paydays pretty early and I was hoping for a bounty hunter that I didn't get. And then I also had one for me, and I had a Horn of the Alpha, so I was hoping to do something with that. But it ended up not working that well. But I was very lucky because I didn't really draw payday that much. I think I only drew 1 payday throughout all the 3 games I played with this deck. Yeah. And then I had like 10 gold or something that I could double to 20. But I never actually got the Horn of the Alpha, I think. And Bloodseeker is not the best. I definitely would have rather had, for example, Bounty Hunter or a different black hero, or maybe even Sorla Khan in this deck would have been crazy, because both the hero in and of itself and his signature card didn't really do that much. And also Intimidation is one card I haven't really played that much in draft until this tournament, which actually Swim and Lock-in opened my eyes to how good it is. And it did a lot for this deck. It's so good, not just for getting rid of an opponent in the lane you're trying to win, but you can also use it to get your own hero. If you play it in the first lane, then you can reposition your hero like a free blink, just that you don't know exactly where it's going, you know. And Oglodi Vandal, like there was just like the Oglodi Vandal, the Dimensional Portal, the Mist of Avernus, like. Yeah, this deck was crazy. It's actually really embarrassing that I lost that one best of 3.
Yeah, so this is really a cool deck. But like one thing I do want to note specifically about that Intimidation, it was a card that on stream showed up a couple times and did just like incredible work, including the game-winning play, like the tournament-winning play at the very end, because it was something that there were people who had told me before, like, yeah, this card is good to play in draft. You really want at least one copy of it in all of your green decks. I personally was a little bit skeptical of it because it looks really clunky, but you really see that you get into these positions where you're like, I just care about not having this hero in this lane. And especially if you're using it in the 3rd lane and you have initiative, it just totally cucks somebody. Like, it totally throws them off of their plans, disrupts them, and especially when you have such poor mobility in draft, it's so important to have your black or your blue or whatever hero in a particular sorts of position, so it allows you to sort of juke your opponent better, and it really punishes them. So that was a card that, going into the weekend, I had like, okay, it seems okay. I get kind of why people are interested in it. But after watching the games, I'm absolutely sold that if you're playing a green deck, you probably want at least one copy.
Yeah. And we also saw a lot of similar plays with Primal Roar, which, tosses 2 enemies across the board, stunning 1. It's
Primal
really...
Roar was a card that we saw that on camera a good deal. I mean, partly because Beastmaster is a common, but man, it was like, it ranged a lot. When it was good, that card looked disgusting. Like it really ruined a lot of people's board states. But there were other games where you're like, if it just had the right hero there, or it just showed up in the right place, it would be really, really good. But it does nothing some of the time. Like, so it makes sense to me why some people are not as hot on Beastmaster, or that he might be. It sounds like he's a bit of a controversial card from what I've seen from the beta testers. Oh, yeah? Because it's such a high variance card of how good it can be in different situations.
Yeah, but we really did see some saving plays with Intimidation as well. Just in one of my favorite matchups, which was Life Coach versus Dave?
Dane.
Yeah, Dane. Yeah. Like it was that second match where Life Coach managed to come back with an Intimidation play where he got Farvan, the Dreamer, into the middle lane, and that saved the whole game later on. It was really crazy.
Yeah, that was one of the best games, the best matches of the day. So actually, it's actually good to cover this about how much each of us had a chance to watch. I know that, Simon, you said that you were busy for a lot of it, so you didn't get to cover as much of it. I actually had a chance to watch.
I did watch quite a few matches, just not most of it.
Yeah. So I actually watched the entire thing basically as it was happening. Part of the reason why is because I was writing the articles for the Artifaction site for it, so I wanted to get those up and get those written as soon as possible. Hopefully the second one will be up. Yeah, the first one is already up on the site. I'll link that in the show notes. The second one should be up by the time this is coming out, hopefully. But that meant though that I wanted to follow it as it was happening, like play by play, and kind of be able to summarize what happened in the various games. And I mean, there were great games all day long. Basically every round had at least one game in every match that was very interesting, if for some reason or another. But that particular match was probably one of the best of the entire tournament, of round 6 of day 1, Life Coach versus Dane, the entire one, beginning to end, all 3 games. So if you are going to only watch one of them, that is the one that I would suggest. And the finals. The finals were just incredible too.
Yeah. those were really fantastic games, and they really showed the comeback potential of Artifact. And many people said that those matches, along with the casting, really showed them how much of an esport Artifact can be. That good.
Yeah. So, Anger, you were, of course, participating in the tournament on day one, so I don't expect that you got a chance to catch too much of the coverage, correct?
Yeah.
Did you catch the coverage on day two, or were you busy yesterday?
No, I was busy.
Ah, that's too bad. We're interested to hear your evaluation about some of that once you do get a chance of it. Of the stuff that you did catch, though, was there any elements of the gameplay that you were particularly enjoyed?
Well, because I of course understand what's going on while the casters were talking. So I think like the whole coverage and the whole casting and everything was amazing, of course, because I know what's going on. But I understand how somebody who hasn't not played in TTS Artifact and not watched videos about how to play, I can understand why it's confusing. But I thought it was really fun to just listen to the casters talk a little bit. Well, I didn't watch many of the games. The few I saw, like I thought it was really good.
So that actually would be a good thing to transition into. So you have something to say on that, Simon?
Yeah, apparently there was a lot of blowback, especially on the first day, because the casters were so excited to finally talk about Artifact and all the cards and all the interactions and just show off their knowledge, especially to the viewers, etc., that they did not consider how many new people there really were in the chat. I mean, this is really the first proper show-off of the game as a whole since PAX, which had pre-constructed decks. So they went in there full analysis, and there were still people asking, what are those arrows? What is the objective? So later on, Hotbit came in there after he saw that feedback and, interjected all those beginner questions. So they had to slow down and explain a little more. And in time for the second day, they decided to go through the tutorial of the game on stream, like first thing, basically, to catch people up. And I think that should have happened first, probably. It didn't bother me too much, but I totally understand that this left a bad impression on many people who saw the game for the very first time. Not only on the Artifact subreddit, but I also looked at other forums, etc. And a lot of people were just not even understanding how this happened. But because we're all so involved in this community and we've been looking at this game for months, if not a year, a lot of people didn't consider that there's going to be this huge influx of viewers on this stream who have not seen anything before. For many people, this was the first reveal of Artifact ever.
Yeah, and that was something that I actually was shocked at the level of response of people, of how many people were watching. And I think that might be part of why it was so overwhelming too. I don't know how, like, if you guys were watching what the viewership numbers was on the stream. On day one, they were hitting like 40,000 people or something like this between Stream TV and Twitch. It was fucking unreal. Like
Steam TV was actually more popular than Twitch throughout most of the hours. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, like this is combined. I don't know how much it was. Like there could have been people who were watching on both or whatever it is, but like there are tens of thousands of people were watching all through on the Saturday. There were a little bit less on the Sunday, but it was still like 15,000 people or so between like all day long for the second day, like in the two streams combined. But then you compare that, for instance, to the PAX stream. The PAX stream, if I remember correctly, was like between 3,000 and 5,000 total.
Yeah.
So the relative response of the two of them, the relative popularity of the two of them, I think kind of explains this confusion, because they're just somehow they were able to, in this BTS tournament, attracted way more eyes and way more attention than they thought that they would. Like, and I can kind of imagine that you're saying, like, okay, we're advertising this to the Reddit, we're advertising this on our Twitter, and through the Play Artifact site. These are largely going to be us, enfranchised maniac nerds who are going to be paying attention to this, but somehow it broke into the gaming universe more generally, and there were a ton of first-time viewers who hadn't gone through watching tutorial-type content, because there's always been this joke within the Reddit where anybody puts up their new beginner guide, and new beginner content, and people are like, oh, we all know that already. Everybody has this beginner stuff that's already out there, but like apparently not everybody's seen it. A huge surprise there. So that was a really weird bit of friction that I can understand how things happened there, that the BTS just didn't expect this level of response. And so they did their best to course correct. It's unfortunate that things worked out in this way. It's kind of a good problem to have, if you understand what I mean, where you're getting kind of too many eyes on it, but still, it was unfortunate that that's kind of how things broke down.
Yeah, as a part of the Artificers Guild, I can tell you that a ton of people went on YouTube, typed in how to play Artifact, and thousands of people watched our how-to video on that. So there was definitely a huge demand when it comes to new people wanting to understand what's up on screen. And I watched on Steam TV in the end because I couldn't take Twitch chat anymore. I did not understand how, by the way, I gotta vent on that a little bit. The Twitch chat for that stream was absolutely awful. Now, you're gonna say Twitch chat is always awful, but they actually put it in slow mode, etc., and some other rules. But the problem is that they automatically deleted and banned people for giving lengthy responses because they assumed those were copy pastors. Meanwhile, the 3-line copy pastors all got through. Yeah, that was absolutely horrible.
Steam TV chat was not great either, though. For me, when I was doing it with the Steam TV, you actually have a mute function, which is great. I wish that Twitch had this as well. But
indeed.
People were random compasses. The Thorson boys were awful, which is what I expected. This is an inevitable thing. I was part of that, watched that, and back when I was a little bit younger of a man. But they're really silly, which is fine. But there's a certain level of it in the Artifact chat where it's just man, this is unusable. So I just muted all of them. And that was incredible.
Yeah, I guess there's going to be a lot of people watching Forsen when he plays Artifacts, apparently.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
Do you not know very much about Forsen? Because he is a really interesting character in the history of the gaming community. The guy, for the longest time, his chat has been just incredibly dank. just full on, nothing but memes and copy pasta, and he encourages it to. I used to watch him back when he was getting started, and so I appreciate that kind of humor. It's one of those things that I used to I still can enjoy it sometimes, but there's a certain amount of it and a certain place for it that I'm just this is a bit much for me. So, but it's very much the Forsen thing.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah. So, but yeah, a lot of people watching it, though. I'm really interested to double check whether or not the Steam TV numbers and the Twitch TV numbers were at all linked in any way. Because if there's part of me that feels that's just so many people if it was two separate numbers entirely of people who are watching it, but still just thousands and thousands of people who watch it basically from beginning to end. So that's an incredibly good problem to have. But I think this actually turns into a topic that maybe we want to return to at the end of the cast about kind of beginner friendliness in general. Actually, we can talk about this now, and then we'll return to some of our other conversations about the tournament afterwards. But this is about the beginner friendliness of Artifact, because this event, I think, highlighted the fact that Artifact's steep learning curve and dense complexity is still a concern that we might not have fully grasped as a community slash Valve as well in the way that things were unrolled here. So I want to start by asking Anger, what your thoughts are on that after playing the game, doing the tutorial yourself, seeing how people responded to the game over the course of the weekend. What's your thoughts on the beginner friendliness of Artifact and whether or not it's an issue?
Well, I think because a lot of people are saying how complex Artifact is. It's 3 Hearthstone games at once. But I actually think it might seem advanced now because people who are brand new started watching the stream without knowing anything about how to play. But it's not that difficult. I mean, of course, it's difficult to be really, really good, but just learning the base mechanics of the game and how to play, it's not that hard. You just have to and even when we learned how to play, that was just from some screenshots and then playing in Artifact TTS.
Yeah,
but
seriously.
now, with the actual game and an actual tutorial, I think people are overestimating how difficult it is. Of course, it's difficult to be super good, but just to learn the game doesn't seem that hard.
Yeah, I think that one of the big barriers is just the amount of stuff that's going on when you're first looking at things. And this is in some respects why I even go back to some conversations that we had before about remember when Amaz made a video talking about his impressions of Artifact and why he was I think that there are some problems here in terms of streamability and people understanding what's happening. And it was something that the Reddit was kind of shitty about it, being all oh, he's just looking at things too simplified. He's just not thinking hard enough about it. I mean, I can understand why not everybody appreciates Amaz's style. He does have a certain tone that can sometimes rub people the wrong way, but I think that his critique is really important for people to remember in understanding the game, because it is just as a trying to take in what is happening from a just looking at the battlefield kind of perspective. It is more complicated than the average game. Now, once you understand some basic concepts, things simplify dramatically. But it's just the initial what is happening on a big picture perspective. It takes a few moments of theoretical understanding before you can actually get into a game.
Yeah, the thing is, I come from Dota 2 and other RTS games, etc., especially StarCraft 2, and there certainly is a learning curve simply to watching a game and passing the information on screen, understanding what's important, what isn't. And I'm glad they actually went into that a little bit on stream when they said, yeah, you just look at the tower health in the top left, etc. Did the tower fall, etc. Are heroes alive? Are they not? But yeah, when they zoom out and you see all the 3 boards, a lot of people just tune out in their head, basically. It's just what is all this? But here's the thing. I personally think that once you do get over the initial barrier of simply understanding the visual language of it, I find Artifact much easier to understand what's going on than Hearthstone, for example. Artifact already does the math for you. You know exactly what's going to happen before the clash of combat actually happens. Each player only drops a single card unless it's an initiative thing, and take turns, just single actions. Meanwhile, in Hearthstone, and that's actually one point of criticism to Amaz's criticism, where he was comparing things to Hearthstone and saying, see how clear that is. And people were like, yeah, but what about Ysera, though? What about this secret deck of dream cards that is not clearly visible to new players, etc.? There's definitely a learning curve to it, but I personally think that the pacing of Artifact and the visual information on screen is actually more precise than, honestly, any other digital card game out there right now. I think some of the stuff that's hardest to understand is the attack arrows, for one. I almost feel like those should be bigger, maybe, or perhaps that's really just something people need to have their nose pointed at. But one of the most recent, most frequent things I saw in the chat asking is like, wait, how did that thing survive? There was something way stronger in front of it. Because like the arrows and the aggro cards in the beginning of every flop.
But that's something I found confusing too before I actually played an Artifact tabletop sim. But when you actually play the game, then like ever since playing the game, it hasn't confused me again. So I think only from a viewer perspective, if you haven't played the game, it's a problem. But I don't think it's something they should change, because in the game it's fine as it is. The one thing people actually complain a little bit about is that some like abilities and stuff, you sometimes forget to use them. But if they were bigger, that would just be obnoxious, in my opinion.
Actually, I've been paying very close attention to all the little details they've added, etc. And there's actually a lot of small stuff that they took care of.
Yeah. They did.
For one thing, they made the boards more distinct, etc. And for example, there's now an animation when an improvement is played where the little circle actually jumps off the card onto the board. So you literally see this board element that Amaz, for example, was critical of for being so small. You see that board element literally being dragged from the card onto the board. And I'm pretty sure they glow more than they used to when they are off cooldown. Like there's now this circular glow to it.
Yeah, I definitely noticed those little UI differences that were definitely improvements. The one that I was actually going to say, though, that I feel might be unnecessarily complicated actually is in the aggro distribution. They do it with these pathing cards, and I don't know why the pathing cards themselves exist. Because, like, why don't you just have the arrows that just go to their targets? Like, what's the point of having those cards that show up and give arrows that then flip over? I don't understand that part. Anger, do you have any like particular reason why you think that is important, or is that just a visual choice that they did?
Well, in every lane, like if, for example, there needs to be 4 arrow cards, like at the start of, before they are put down, then there is a 50% chance of the arrow going straight forward and 25% chance of the arrow going in either direction. So that is already, those cards are already picked out at the start before the cards are placed down. And then they are placed down randomly. So
they're shuffled together with creeps and heroes and placed into the empty combat spots.
Yeah, so I think it's not just that they show you where the arrows go, but also where the creeps go. Like just what where
they show you the arrows that are supposed to show up on the board, because I never paid attention to that before. Like it shows you these are the combination of arrows that are going to show up, because I always thought that it was like, oh, these are just showing that there's going to be arrows showing up. I'll actually have to check that out on one of the replays, because I feel like that
it happens at deployment.
Yeah. I know that you're talking about now that you mention it. I never realized and put together that those were the same things that showed up in the they showed up in the game. I kind of like just didn't associate the two of them necessarily together. I don't know why, but I there's part of me that feels like that might add a little bit of unnecessary complexity, given the fact that I don't feel like people make very many decisions based on that information.
Yeah, they should just make it automatic. Like you don't see the entire animation.
Yeah, I don't feel that those cards add. I guess that it might be just the idea of an RNG mitigation idea, because you look at the cards, you look at the pathing, and you say, okay, these are the possibilities here. I know there's no chance that. I guess you don't even get that information. I guess you could say something along the lines of like, okay, this hero shows up in this position, and there's a 0% chance that this particular interaction could line up. That seems just a long shot for me, though. A very borderline, niche situation, but it adds a lot of visual complexity to what's happening on the battlefield.
Actually, they already reduced that a little as well, because the cards used to be put down before you zoom in on the first board again, and the arrows were already redirected, and they changed that. So now the arrows are redirected once you zoom in on the board again after deployment. So you actually see the aggro being redirected. Like, it seems that the developers do think that this is an important element for people to understand.
Yeah.
And to see visually, because here's the thing, aggro actually does change every round with every flop, even for units that were placed the round before. If they don't have something blocking them straight across from them, their aggro will be redirected again. So it is important information to know every round what is happening to that unit's combat direction.
Sure. Okay, well, I think that that's a good point. There's a lot to be said, like more there, but we'll leave that for now, because I'm sure this will be a recurring theme over the course of the next couple of weeks as we get more and more impressions of people as they're actually starting to play the game. What I'm particularly interested to hear from are people who are particularly the TI people who are starting to play the game this coming weekend, or the coming Monday, I suppose, about a week from the time that we're recording this, that when they first play the game, if they haven't seen anything beforehand, what their impressions are for it. But anyway, we'll leave that for now. Though actually, the last thing that I'll say on this beginner friendliness, that I think that the beginner only streams that they've done in Dota in the past were... It was always something that had mixed responses. Some people really enjoyed them. Some people thought that they were kind of a waste of time. But I felt like that would have been particularly helpful this weekend, of having a advanced stream and a beginner stream. Because more than Dota is right now, for example, the vast majority of people who are participating in Dota and watching Dota are hardcore Dota players. Like there's not a ton of casual, just starting out Dota people. That's kind of a problem. But
it's either hardcore Dota or hardcore MTG, or people who thought Gwent has gone too casual.
Yeah. So I think that this like doing a stream like the one that we had this weekend, when actually I think that you should have been, how it maybe should have been structured, and might be like this an idea for people who are doing tournaments in the future, is having a advanced stream and a beginner stream for at least a little while, and that the beginner stream actually be kind of like the priority. And really what it is just for the next little while of just doing, this is what's happening in deployment, this is what's happening in hero selection, like casting the cards, etc. Just narrating all of the mechanics of the game, essentially, because that, I think, is what's necessary for getting people over that learning curve for now.
And I think there's one feature that will be very useful, which is actually on Twitch, which is being used for many of the other card games, which is this whole plugin thing where you can actually mouse over cards in the stream and it reacts like the game would, and you can read about the cards' effects and the buffs and debuffs, etc. I think that would help immensely. So, but knowing Valve, they will not make that themselves. They will leave that to the community as usual. So we'll probably see that after release, but knowing the passion of people in the community, it should not take too long. But I actually saw a couple people who were already crying bloody murder that it wasn't ready for the freaking preview tournament.
Yeah, I mean, that's it's hard for us to know from the outside of exactly what happens on the inside of why things take the times that they do. But I mean, there's a lot of hard work that's obviously going into this. Like, it's very clear that people are still working hard. I mean, like, even in the course of watching the tournament, there were a variety of visual bugs that we saw, like just small little bits and pieces here and there. Like, it didn't really compromise the overall viewing experience very much. But for instance, when there were two heroes of the same type that were in a draft deck, they showed up as one, not as two. So that was like just a weird little thing, but I imagine they're working hard to get all that stuff ironed out for the next week. But with that, I actually want to touch on a few other things. related back to the tournament that happened and our thoughts about it. One was about Joel Larson's particular performance for this. So he was one of the guys who was invited to come to the BTS studio for the cast and was participating as an analyst as well. But he went on to actually win the entire tournament, which was absolutely spectacular to watch. It was really, really cool to get his thoughts all the way through it. Like game by game, that was really impressive, and his play was incredibly tight. Just from beginning to end, from every time that we saw him on the stream, he was making some really remarkable plays.
Yeah, he is definitely going to be one of the favorites in my eyes going forward for the tournament in the first quarter next year.
Have you actually had a chance to play against him rather ever there, Anger?
No.
His ass?
Not that I'm aware of.
Well, hopefully you get a chance sometime soon to show your prowess against him. But yeah, he did such a spectacular job and clearly had a lot of good planning. There was a really great turn at the end of the. There's one game where he had to make kind of use a lot of resources to kill a hero to purchase a red mist mole that he had held in the shop to get the final points of damage in. And it was this really extravagant bag shot because the casters were watching him and being like, I don't understand what he's doing. Like, he seems to be putting a lot of resources into killing this bristleback. It doesn't even really matter that much. And what he actually was doing was he had held something in the secret shop the turn beforehand. We just didn't see it. And was able to purchase the red mist mole and win the game as a result of that. Absolutely just incredible play.
Actual for real 200 IQ plays.
Oh yeah. So he was somebody who just really impressed me. He's also Swedish as well. That's just one of a very close neighbor of yours, Anger, as well.
That's actually racist to compare me to disgusting Swedes.
Wow. Wow, maybe I think that's not racist. I would say, they're all Nordic and you're like, God, damn those people. How dare they?
Yeah, they and their köttbullar, Swedish meatballs.
I love Swedes. And it's nice to see some. It's nice to see
my
some
whole
skin.
apartment's full of IKEA. I swear.
Yeah, no, he's been somebody who's been a long time big fixture in the Magic community, doing really, really well there. So it's impressive to see him transition into another game like this. There's also one of the other great matchups that was really sweet, and then is that Kuroki was playing in the tournament, which was really sweet. And in the semifinals, he actually went into the semifinals, and one of the digs that I got into the articles that Joel Larson beat him in the semifinals, proving that Magic is just better than Dota.
Lol.
Clearly, I mean, I don't know what else you can read into that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool, though. But it was just that also the kaleidoscope of different people who were coming into the game. Like Mogwai comes from Gwent, who was the other finalist who was in the game. When we were watching the actual tournament, the casters, we have Life Coach, who has a history of both Hearthstone and Gwent. Swim, of course, obviously a history of Gwent primarily is what he's known for, and then Fwash and Luminous, they're both known for their Dota work. Just that kind of diversity of different talents and different communities that were coming together in the course of the casting, I think actually hopefully reflects what we see in the community moving forward, where you get these different flavors that come together to establish an interesting mix for Artifact.
It's about the competitive mindset.
Yeah. But I don't know, maybe that's just me being cheesy, but did you guys find that interesting?
Yeah, I really like that all these different games are now, all these different game communities are now coming together, and I was kind of at the start, just for some reason I thought that most of the players in the beta were going to be Dota players. Like when I first heard about Artifact and the closed beta, before I got in, I just assumed because it's Valve and it's the Dota card game that it was going to be mostly Dota players playing this game, and of course maybe some from Hearthstone and MTG, and I didn't even know what Gwent was at the time. But you know, it's really fun not to see that. Maybe even Dota players might be in a minority, you know? And I really love that.
It's really beautiful. All the most toxic communities combining into one. Really.
Maybe it's for the best that Dota players are a minority.
And to some extent, the air assault.
It's all salt.
Yeah, no, I think that it's pretty impressive in that respect, but I think that that'll be interesting rivalries, I think, between the different communities as a result of that. The Gwent people specifically seem to be doing quite well. In a number of the people who've been doing well so far. I mean, Life Coach being one of them, and Swim being another. Swim did a great job of casting, by the way. I think that his analysis was slanted to the more advanced player, which I think is his forte and what he's the more comfortable with. So that was something that I think that might have been part of the reason that some people were japing for. But I think that he did an absolutely spectacular job of the expert analysis. And there was also something that I became really fixated on, was just also how difficult the casting is for these games, because you have just so many different things that you're following.
Yeah. And it's also very hard to get into the head of some players.
Yeah.
Like you could tell that the casters were struggling with a few of the players knowing why they're doing things and predicting them, and they were just such hard to predict plays, really.
Yeah. And also just the fact that the games went so fast compared to the PAX games, for example. This went so much faster because everyone knows what they're doing now.
The rounds went faster, but we definitely saw some extraordinarily long games as well.
Yeah, I mean, like from play to play, you know, from card to card.
Yeah, I understand, but still, I am actually I really like the pacing of the game and the length of it.
Yeah, but that's just draft, though. Draft is always longer than constructed.
Yeah, that actually is something that I was interested in as well in terms of tournament length, etc. The feeling for day 2 is a lot better than day 1 of the smoothness of it, given, and then the basic, there's a lot of reasons for that. Most importantly of which is that they were able to just going to go back to back to back to back to back. They weren't waiting for anything between the different games, of course, because there's only one happening at once. But I think that if you were to do a tournament of, you could do it with a significant number of more people, of a 7 rounds on day 1, and then another draft in the morning of 3 rounds on day 2, and then you do the top 8, where you have, or you could even do 4 rounds in the morning and then another 3 rounds in the afternoon, and then that 3 rounds for the top 8 would only be like 1 quarterfinals, 1 semifinals, and 1 finals, as opposed to doing the entire one. But that you could, if you hosted a tournament like that, that's more than enough space for a pretty large tournament. You could get probably a couple thousand people into that, and just given the nature of the timing of the rounds and the plays, it's pretty easy to ensure that you're going to be able to function more or less on time in it, because just the constraints of the clock. I think that the way that it works is that for every, like, you start off the game with 5 minutes on your clock, and then at the end of every turn, every round rather, you get an extra minute that's added onto your clock. So as long as you're taking a total of a minute or less in every round, you actually are fine, and you could keep the same amount of time. But that means that, like, over the course of a long game, you eventually have to force the players to make faster and faster plays if they're dragging things on.
Yeah. No more rope coach.
How do you find the timing of the matches? Is that something that you feel like you run into a lot in the course of playing the games there, Anger?
The timer?
Yeah.
When I first started playing, I felt like there was no way this is enough time, because I kept running out of time. But now, when I'm more used to playing, it's completely fine. I don't think I've ever... Sometimes I will get the like, she will yell at me because I only have 1 minute left and stuff, but it never gets to the point where I'm worried I'm gonna run out of time. So it's I think a lot of people are gonna that's something maybe a lot of people are gonna be angry about at the start, just that they feel maybe the tournament timer is too short. But that's something you get used to.
Cool. So one thing that I actually was thinking about finishing off with is actually talking about the last hero that was revealed right before the tournament came out. Unless you guys have any other final thoughts on the tournament. Did you have anything that you wanted to say to close things out there before we talk about little Tinker over here?
Well, one thing is that because one thing is that Artifact, like I don't think Artifact is very difficult to learn, but one surprising thing is how exhausting it is to play.
Yes, I think I saw that in the players.
It's not casual at all. Like Hearthstone, it's not something you can sit down and play and have a good jolly old time and you know just chill and play some Artifact. It's so intense. It was at the point where between matches I just had to leave my computer and just go and you know just clear my thoughts for a little bit. Yeah, and just like it was exhausting. But don't get me wrong, it's super fun, but it's so intense, and I love that because they have that from Dota. The intenseness, the like you know you actually get into that survival mode, you know. You're fighting for your life.
There were definitely some hype moments, which is, I mean, it is not that common in card games that there's like hype moments where like each card is like, oh
yeah. That's actually something that I think that does really well too. That I think that the streamability of it is, once you get past the complexity of what's happening, there were a very high density of intense dramatic moments and like sequencing decisions. So you're like, oh, is he gonna play it first? Is he gonna play it first? It's like, oh no, oh, you got to blow the fuck, like those kinds of things like happen like multiple times.
Where's it gonna land?
Yeah, where's it gonna like? It's like oh my god, is he gonna? He's in the middle lane. He's fucked. It's over. Like that kind of like elements were so sick. They had a really good density of those, which I think bodes well for Artifact as an esport.
Exactly.
So, anything else that you wanted to touch on before we talk about Tinker there, Simon, my boy?
Nah, I think we're good for now. I'm going to say something before we end, but let's go to Tinker now.
Tinker. He is a 7/5. He has the ability Laser that has an active over a 3-turn cooldown, deal 3 damage to a unit and disarm it this round. And his signature card is March of the Machines. It's an improvement that before the action phase, if there are charges on March of the Machines, remove 1 and deal 2 damage to the enemy tower and 2 damage to each enemy. So this the signature card would be described as a very similar to Conflagration, but it is only active for 3 turns. And then the active ability, though, Laser, this seems so good to me, of the active 3, deal 3 damage, and disarm a unit. Like, that's got to be super annoying in certain lanes. Like, if you don't have a way to get rid of him or you draw aggro for it, like, it's a great way. Like, he can protect himself really well or stop your opponent from moving all in for the lethal or something like this. And then that signature card as well, just if you're not in blue and you're controlling oriented deck, I feel like you have to play Tinker.
Yeah, it is definitely very strong to nuke something and still disable it.
Yeah, I wouldn't play him in Constructed, but he's good in Draft.
Not mono green, not good enough. Is that the line? Does he actually see play in the Constructed at all?
Well, I don't think I've played against any Constructed black decks that run him, because usually there's Sniper and PA and Bounty, and you just can't fit Tinker. Unless you have mono black, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, he's not. I wouldn't run him in Constructed, but in Draft, you know, he's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, actually,
there it is again.
Yeah, that actually makes sense to me, because I think that from what I've seen and what I've heard, a lot of the black decks, either they're very aggressive, in which case you probably want Winter Wyvern and Sorlikon and PA or Bounty Hunter, like those kinds of cards, as opposed to him. And then even the controlling oriented ones often have a particularly heavy gold component to them as well. So that might be why you're playing Bounty Hunter a lot of the time instead of him. And you're playing it with blue. When you're pairing it with blue, like this guy is just doesn't hold up there. Blue just has all the sleepers that you'd ever want, but seems totally busted in draft.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah. We also
one interesting thing about March of Machines actually is that it doesn't get condemned when it reaches 0 charges. So it just stays there, and if you have something like Pugna, where you condemn a random improvement, you may actually condemn something that's already done its job.
Or you leave yourself more vulnerable to constructed all-star dirty deeds. The one that deals 2 damage per improvement. Yeah, it leaves that there. It leaves your vulnerability to it. So, I mean, I guess it might be something that...
dirty deeds.
No, dirty deeds. I mean, I guess if you're somebody who's running Smash the Defenses, that this would be a target that you could use Smash the Defenses on, what has already spent all its charges for it, and that you could draw a card from that if that's where the position that you're in, I suppose. I mean, that's a weird situation, don't get me wrong. But it seems like a possibility.
Yeah.
Okay. So, actually, we have one other new card. Maybe we'll just get that one out of the way there, too, since while we're here. That is Rout. Is that the name for... Routed. Sorry. Routed. 6 cost. Red card. Modify enemy heroes at the fountain with -X attack, where X is half their attack. Modify them with your hero has -1 mana. This seems like it's hard to pull off in Constructed because it's clunky and expensive, but if you were able to land this, it's got to be super devastating.
Yeah, it can be.
It's pretty trash.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
There it is.
Would you play this in Constructed, or is this only in Draft?
I would never play this in Constructed. In Draft, maybe.
Maybe, really? I mean, the reason why I think is because this is... I kind of agree with you, but the reason that in my mind is because it feels like a win more card a lot of the time. Like, you already have taken down multiple heroes, and then you set them back even further, but you kind of would rather, as red, just have something that affects the board, I think, a lot of the time. So
it's just too passive.
Yeah.
It doesn't do much for 6 mana. And you also have to rely on the enemy having a lot of heroes killed. Like, if you only...
No, that's on you.
Yeah. But still, it's just... like, it's too situational, and even the situations where you would then use it, it's not devastating. Whereas other 6 mana cards typically are very, very good and actually helps you win the game, you know? But this doesn't really help you win the game. It only slows down your opponent.
But still, I feel like affecting something affecting something that is dead is super cool to me.
I mean, it's cool.
It's cool, but it's trash.
It's cool trash, you know. So with that I think will be it for the episode today. Thank you so much for joining us. I have lots of stuff on the channel for you to check out that I have been doing. Anger, what have you been up to?
I'm actually working with Tyler from VNN on something.
Sure.
And I'm not going to say too much about it. You will just have to see for yourself when hopefully it will be out tomorrow. So...
You guys have been teasing stuff for a while. I haven't pushed too hard on it because I feel like if you could tell us, you would tell us. But I know that you guys have been up to some shenanigans in in secret. So interested to see how that turns out.
Yeah. On the side of the Artificers Guild, we just got a ton of content to work through. We already released a video today about the controversial question of how accessible Artifact really is. So go ahead and see what Divok has to say about that. I have something cooking up myself, and yes, I'm just going to tease it a bit. At first, I thought it would become irrelevant after the tournament, because obviously Reddit would transform into a very happy place. It did not. In fact, the salt intensified, so it's still relevant. But before we leave, I would actually say say something off topic a little, just because it's really hot off the presses. Which is that Stan Lee died today.
Yeah, that's actually something I didn't want to close out on. So basically, one of the most important people in nerddom. Like, there are it's pretty easy to argue that he is the most important nerd of all time in terms of like nerd culture and like contributions there.
Yeah, so in terms of comics, Stan Lee and Kirby together created some of the longest lasting heroes of, pop culture overall of the world.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of shell shocked because somebody, like, while we were doing this, my girlfriend showed me the news, and oof.
Yeah.
I had to breathe for a little. Apparently, he still got to film his appearance for the next Avengers film next year. So
wow.
it looks like he's going out with a bang, so to say. Since that is like the culmination of the whole MCU, right? Yeah. And he just appeared in Venom, even though that's not like affiliated.
We didn't talk about that one. We didn't talk about that. Yeah, but I mean, look, he deserves a shout out on every nerd podcast. If it doesn't matter whether you're Dota or Magic or whatever nerd, like the guy is a legend of nerd culture, and especially I think that even Anger, I know you're not a big fan of the Marvel movies necessarily, but what they've done to geekdom and nerddom and helping to mainstream them and make them a lot cooler and more accessible, I think has done so much for people like us who, like, even if you don't like them yourself, they're a little bit too casual for you, but for like it has added a lot of interest to the. It's definitely a loss, and just like how active he was in participating in all these movies and stuff like that up until '95, like holy shit. So props to the guy.
Yeah,
Rip, he did a lot.
Yeah, they turned nerd culture into pop culture, really. Rip.
Anything? Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah. Rest in peace.
Yeah. Yeah, no, indeed. I mean, no, it's hard to know what else to say. But anyway, tribute to him. Shout out to him. He had a good run, though, of course. So, but that'll be it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure. Take care, everybody.
Peace.
Thank you. Thank you for your business.
I'm doing what I enjoy doing. It's like other men like to play golf, so they play golf every chance they can. So you don't say to them, how come you're playing golf today? You played last week. It was the same with me. To me, it is such fun creating characters, writing stories. It's an exciting life, and when you do something that you know the fans seem to enjoy, that gives you such satisfaction, you don't want to stop.